Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I am super excited to have our guests here today. I'm Kyler Cheatham, the host of ByteSized. If you're new here, welcome. I'm always so excited to have you, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about the format before we introduce our guests. So, first and foremost, ByteSize is our platform where we discuss all kinds of different technology strategies, because it doesn't matter what I say, right? It doesn't matter what the guest says. It matters what's best for your business. And that's really how we have these conversations. A big part of that is you guys in the comments. So we can see all of your comments depending on if you're joining us on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, anything. We can see all of those gathered here. So I invite you to ask questions or to share your insight so that we can have this community type conversation. If you haven't seen ByteSized before, I invite you to follow our YouTube channel, or you can find us on LinkedIn too. We go live every week with different industry leaders to talk about things that are important to what we're seeing happen as far as technology evolution and strategy. So with that, I'd love to hear where you're joining from in the comments today. So if you could just pop that in, we have a global audience, and it's always so fun to see where everyone's joining. So my guests today are here from Extentia, which is a Merkle company, and we're excited to hear a lot about our topic today, which is user-centric design, right? How do we ensure that we are designing or deploying our technology to make sure that we have the ability to really have that adoption for leaders? So thank you guys so much for joining us. I will let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do and what your role is, maybe just a few personal options as well. So let's go ahead and start with either of you, whichever one wants to go first.
I'll go first. I'm Pradnya, part of Extentia, which is now part of Merkle. I lead the experience teams at Extentia, part of leading the experience design studio at Extentia. And I manage for customers the experience-centric transformation projects. A big believer of design thinking. I also manage the SAP App House initiatives for Extentia. We are part of the SAP App House network. So excited to be here today and talking to all of you and the audience, about experience-centered transformation, which is our approach when we work with customers in their digital transformation journey. So excited to be here and to talk to all of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, I'm Nick. I go by, so that's my nickname, but I'm actually Saranic. I am the experience strategy lead at Extentia, a mobile company. And with Pradnya, I work under the experience strategy workshops, so facilitating and leading the design thinking workshops, essentially seeing how these visions for digital transformation sort of lead into actionable strategies and plans and action items for year-round transformation plans, multi-year transformation plans. And it's always, no matter how many times you see these stories unfold, it's always an exciting story to experience, be a part of, and today be able to share that with all of you as well.
Absolutely. Well, we're so grateful for your insights today. And a lot of times you guys partner with our AppHose colleagues, which we had on a previous episode. We also have a newsletter about kind of what they do. And it's such a cool pocket of our industry because a lot of times we're having very technical conversations, right? What are your requirements? What do you need to implement? And we're not really thinking about where the experience for the end user sits. And that's so, so important in order to be successful. So I'd love, maybe we'll start with you, Nick, for you to kind of tell us, let's define what experience-centric transformation means, and then we can kind of go from there.
So, it's a very interesting question, Kyler. So, how we look at experience-centric transformation is essentially how do we enable a particular experience a user or a stakeholder has when they're interacting with a service, a particular technology, a product, or even a brand at large, right? How do we enable what that interaction looks like and feels like? So that's the So when you pivot your transformation strategies of how brands are discovered, interacted with, and experienced around that interaction, that's when we say, because experience lies at the center, it's experience-centric. And we are shaping it not just for the end users, but we are shaping that experience for everyone enabling that. So all the stakeholders involved. So that's really the crux of experience strategy and experience-centric transformation.
And I guess, Pradnya, why is that important? Why is that something that's really critical to making sure technology is successful?
So, as Nick said, experience-centric transformation is all about humans, right? Keeping the humans or keeping users at the center. So whatever experience and digital transformation we are doing, it's for the users, correct? So we need to understand, how users are going to perceive it, how users are going to connect with what we are going to build. So it is very important that we think for the users and build experiences for the users. Technology is important. Many times, customers, when they think of digital transformation, they think of a tech transformation. That I have a legacy application, I want to move this application to the latest platform. It could be any latest cloud platform, it could be CRM. They want to move the legacy application to a newer platform. But that is not limited to the tech transformation, but they should think about how users are going to connect with the new platform that they are building, and how users are going to adapt to that platform, how they are going to be using the platform. Whether there is a user delight which is kind of achieved when they are moving to a newer platform. So that is why the experience is important, because users are not going to see the technology platform which is behind the transformation. Users are going to interact with the application with their emotions and with their needs. So it is very important to make sure that their their needs are met, and not just met, but they are delighted with the platform. They feel like using it every day. So that is very, very important.
Absolutely. I love that you say delighted with the platform, because I don't think in my work I've ever heard anyone be like, wow, I'm so delighted with this platform. But that is so critical to not only, having a good experience, which, obviously is the priority, but also when we're talking like shareholders, boards, that's going to up user adoption and really give that true ROI to the technology, because you involved the end user. So I'm curious, when we look at why this is often left out, right? We know, as core IT professionals in deep tech, that, delighted and experience on the emotion side isn't really always our strong suit, right? Which is why we have you guys in the marketplace to keep us, level set. But why do you think that's so overlooked, especially in 2025? Like, come on, with the rise of low code, no code tools and the importance of user experience, why is that still something that's left out? I'll go. Yeah, you go. Whoever wants to go first. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So maybe I'll take a first stab at that, and Pradnya, you can add on to that. So I think a large part of why it has historically been overlooked is it's been one of the most difficult parameters to measure and report. When you talk about experience delight, you have metrics to define, hey, this is acceptance criteria, these are the success metrics to define performance. But how do you measure delight? Apart from you have your qualitative reviews and testimonials and sentiment of what is being used. So that leads to that question of why, if you aren't able to measure and justify, hey, this was because it was delightful, this has led to business. That's where we see that sort of experience being left behind or overlooked. The other is, I believe digital transformation has always been tech-led. So it's rising in from this digital wave of, okay, this is what technology enables us to do. This is what this is what is possible within the realm of technology. And hence the conversation has revolved around what's possible and what's feasible to do, rather than what is desirable and what is expected of the system to perform as. But I believe that with AI coming into the picture and with largely digital transformation becoming more democratized,
Mm-hmm.
we're seeing a shift to a larger emphasis on experience as well,
Mm-hmm.
where more and more our clients and partners and folks we work with are coming in with that approach, saying, "Hey, we need to look at the experience we want to enable."
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
I also think, Kyla, that many times stakeholders whom we work with, they are thinking of, when they think of digital transformation, they are thinking of how I can increase my revenue,
Yes.
how I am going to increase the internal efficiency, like the internal productivity, so that my team will be more efficient, they can complete the task quickly, and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But they don't think of adoption. Okay,
Yes.
they don't think of this will happen only when your teams and users start using the system.
Mm-hmm.
And when they will start using the system is basically when they like it, when they
Yeah.
like the interactions with the system, when they find it usable, when they find it intuitive. So it is very important that they understand the importance of experience. But unfortunately, they are more focused on get it done quickly,
Yeah.
give it to the users, and let's see the impact, that I want to see. There's nothing wrong in that, but I'm saying that it should be coupled with experience thinking.
Sure.
It should be coupled with making the system more usable and intuitive, so that they get the required adoption as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think in those situations, to Nick's point, measuring do they like it is a very difficult thing. Which brings me back to our audience. I see all of these amazing comments and questions over here, and we'll get to some of them. It looks like we've got a whole world, a whole global, audience here. Do you say it prune, India, or how do you say it?
Pune.
Pony. Okay, yeah. My American accent is always, so crazy, as my German colleagues tell me. So, we've got the West Coast joining us here, which is very early for them in the States. So Colorado, Arizona. So thank you all for getting up early. We've got Germany. What a fun conversation. So I think to follow up on that questions, pick up on that thread of how do you measure this? And mostly, like, we might know as project teams that this is important, right? But how do we convince the board or the executive team that we need to budget and plan for this and give time around it? So I'm going to pull up this question here from LinkedIn. How do you measure success as an experience-driven project beyond standard KPIs? And I will do you guys want me to pick which one of you answers, or do you prefer to pick?
We will pick, Nick, you want to start or?
Yeah. So there are multiple layers to this, and this is usually a very common question that we come across as well. That how do you sort of justify or measure experience that you deliver?
Yeah.
And of course, there are these standard KPIs like your reviews and sentiments that come across. But how we look at it is there are three layers to experiences being measured. The first is at the very visceral level where you first interacted with a particular product and you have an almost immediate reaction to that, right? And which is usually best signaled through your early stage usage metrics like, hey, how many people dropped off after your onboarding? How many people dropped off after using the first feature? What is your average scroll depth that has led to certain things getting stuck, right? Then we say that there's a more behavioral aspect where we see experience driving a lot of retention on the app as well, or the retention of the system. And that's best signal, or a great signal of that is when we see new features being pulled instead of having to be pushed by the system. When features are introduced, they are accepted, they're used and utilized much greater than if it is a push from the system saying, hey, why don't you use this? So I think at a broad spectrum view of this, where we see it is there are metrics that help us evaluate this experience at a very first touch point of view, and there are metrics that only we are able to report at a long standing after this feature or the product has been live for quite some time, and we can see these retention metrics come in.
Absolutely. Anything
So
to
I think
add?
loyalty, yeah, I think loyalty also would be one, right? I mean, in
Yeah.
terms of like B2C scenario, the loyalty,
Yeah.
retention,
That's right.
then adoption. How many users are kind of on the system and how many of them are using it? Because we work with many customers where digital transformation is done, the application is given to users, or they have done the digital transformation, the
Mhm.
application is given to the users to use, but they don't see adoption. Correct. So I would say adoption is also,
Yeah.
like one of the critical ones, right? I mean, how many people are using it
Yeah.
actually?
Right.
And how it is helping them to perform their tasks or complete their, the processes, efficiently in lesser time with more productivity. I think that also could be something, that can be measured. As like how much time they used to take before, for completing a certain task, and how much time they are going to need to complete maybe after the digital transformation. So the internal efficiency improvement, process efficiency improvement also could be one of the metrics.
Absolutely. And I think that is still often overlooked or it's seen as an afterthought, right? Oh, we implemented this system, nobody's using it. And now we're doing more of a reactive strategy instead of a proactive strategy. And I know that's, how you guys completely operate. But I wonder if you can give us kind of a lens of how you do that differently, because that's so hard, right, to kind of change that mindset in the industry of saying like, okay, yes, we've always done technical requirements, then we match a system, then we implement it, and then we force our users to use it. And oh, by the way, that's a terrible idea and that costs us lots of money. And so I wonder if you can give us an idea of your approach of how you might not only prioritize those end user experience, but also make sure that you have that shareholder buy-in of like, hey, this is a critical strategy, right?
Maybe I'll
Yeah.
start, Nick, and you can add more. So basically, getting users involved in the experience design process and in the digital transformation initiative right from the beginning is very, very critical. Right? I mean, you can't leave the users to the second or a third stage of digital transformation, but get them involved right from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And same goes with stakeholders, getting the stakeholders and users in one room and have that shared understanding for the business vision that the stakeholders have, and then why users, how users perceive that. Okay, what users are expecting, asking those questions, starting with why you want to build it, what users are expecting. I think getting them involved early in the process is the key.
Mm-hmm.
How to convince the stakeholders of the importance of experience. We can use a lot of data. We can do competitor analysis, and that's what we do. You do a lot of competitor benchmarking, try to bring a lot of data from the industry that see
Mm-hmm.
this is how others are doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and they are benefiting from this. So presenting those case studies and presenting those examples to stakeholders is very, very helpful, because then it's easy to get buy-in. They understand that what they are missing out,
Yes.
what they should target, and they also get a good understanding of what their users are expecting.
Yeah.
By doing, we do user research also. We talk to users and like a
Yes.
primary research, right? So we talk to users, we try to understand what they're expecting and bring those research findings back to stakeholders, telling them, see, this is what your users are expecting. So
Mm-hmm.
this primary research, secondary research, and bringing the users early in the system, I think that is a key for making it user centric and human centric, when we are talking about digital transformation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything to add, Nick?
Yeah, I think just one point, and this is bringing back an example of how we sort of get stakeholders out of
Mhm.
their shoes
Yeah.
as business drivers or product owners into the shoes of the users themselves. So, we get them to sort of imagine what it would feel like if they were using the systems they're setting out to build, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of immediately changes that perspective from, hey, we need to create this fast or we need to create value for business, to saying we need to share that value between the business and the users who are going to use it. right? And that sort of mindset shift is what we sort of leverage with our app house practices, with our design thinking workshops, and we are able to bring that early buy-in from stakeholders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's so critical because when we don't get that in the first couple phase, then we're doing the most expensive part of these types of projects, which is redesign, re-implement, re-engage, right? So all of those reads have a 4 times plus price tag on those. And a lot of times that's what our shareholders are really concerned about. Should that be what they're concerned about? Not really, right? They should be concerned about the experience of their people. But at the end of the day, we understand that business is business. And I think this question really kind of talks about the not only the executive team wanting speed, but how you guys take all of these different user experiences and design or choose or implement or customize a system around that. So this question for those of you joining in our audio format are: sales wants features, engineering wants clean architecture, executives want speed. When these all collide, whose human experience wins? So when you have all of these competing priorities, right? All of these different user groups being like, I need this, I need this, I need this. How do you bring all of that in and create a design where everyone likes it, right? They're delighted by that. I can't imagine that is an easy task.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That is the toughest task, I would say, because every stakeholder has his or her own priorities and own mission, what they want to achieve, when they are doing a digital transformation project. But I think the business value should drive the digital transformation. And in the workshops that we do, every engagement we do with customers, we start with the design thinking workshop, and that is the first topic that we have, that what is a business value that you want to create out of this digital transformation. And when we do that, we have all the stakeholders in the room. We have a tech team in the room, we have stakeholders, customer stakeholders, product owners in the room. So when we discuss that, everyone understands, oh, this is a business value and this is a success criteria for this digital transformation project. So we create that shared vision when we are talking about a digital transformation project. So everyone understands that the business value that needs to be derived from this project. And what are the long-term, short-term goals? So it's not like done in silos. If you do these discussions in silos, then it's very, very difficult to get everyone on the same page. But when you do that in a workshop format using design thinking methodologies, I think we have that shared vision pretty quickly. And then it becomes easy for us to move forward. Then everyone aligns. Then that alignment happens at the start of the engagement, so that it becomes easy for us to kind of take them along in the digital transformation journey. We also use different frameworks from App House in terms of prioritization, right? I mean, what is a priority for business?
Right.
Tech priority is one thing, functional priority, but what is business looking for? What are your users looking for? And then bringing all the insights together and kind of defining the priorities, the long-term, short-term vision. I think that is what we do as a part of our digital design thinking framework and the workshops we do.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anything to add, Nick?
I'll just bring back one point that Pradnya already mentioned earlier, is about asking that why. So, when you question the business priorities, each team looks at meeting those business priorities differently. So for the same business priorities, sales needs more features, engineering needs quicker turnaround, far better architecture, and executives want it done yesterday, right? However, when we are able to decipher that core purpose, the why behind what we're doing, we can ensure the sales want the right features, engineering wants the right clean architecture, and executives want the right speed of delivery. And that's where, because otherwise, no human experience wins. But when you're able to find that balance, and I completely agree that it's not always very easy to do that. But when you're able to find that balance is when you're able to unlock that delight for not just your user, but everyone who's involved in making that happen.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the piece of that is kind of disarming teams that are already on high alert when they walk into these workshops, and you actually listening to them. And that goes much farther, right, than them having this wish list of features of saying, I hear you. I hear that's a pain point in your experience. And what I'm going to do is prioritize that the best I can, as, Pradnya said, is with the business goals, right? We have to understand what all of that means. So again, I see all of these great questions coming in. If we don't get to all of them, which we never do because you guys are so amazing, we will always go back in and answer them, right? I'll go back in and tag the Experientia Merkle Company team and make sure that they can add some color to these and really get all of that in there. But I really appreciate all the great insights in here. Just to share like a couple of commentary. I love the word delighted. Absolutely. I do too. I'm, going to steal that one for sure. Because I, again, love the idea of someone being delighted by a system, because then your adoption budget is zero, right? You don't have to kind of go in there and start forcing things that don't make sense. And there's nothing worse than, designing this entire system and then going to the end user and then being like, I don't actually do that. And you're like, oh, okay, great. Awesome. we just went through this entire process and it's not something that's fulfilling your needs, which is why I love your methodology and approach of talking to the end user first, right? So that we can really understand the experience. Does that mean that the experience won't change? No. Processes change with new technology, but at least we understand and we kind of garner all of that. Let's go to this one, which is you guys always know I have to wait till the 30-minute mark to talk about AI, because we got to get all the boring stuff out of the way before we bring that in. But I love this question. With AI automating parts of the design and research process, what are the new roles you see emerging in centric teams? This is such an interesting question when it comes to that. And maybe even, what new roles, or how do you see roles being redefined, keeping the priority that even with these low code, more flexible type of systems, user design is still extremely important. It's a, huge pillar of the strategy. So curious what your thoughts are on that.
So I think, AI, in my view, would be an enabler in the whole experience design process or experience-centric transformation. We should definitely use AI for all the repetitive tasks, or doing, maybe wireframes and information architecture and things like that. But the empathizing with the stakeholders, empathizing with the users, it is an emotional process. You are connecting with the users emotionally. You are trying to understand their pain points. You're trying to understand, what are they looking for in that particular system. And this requires maybe, reading their body language when you're talking to them, how they express, what are their pain points. I don't think AI can do that. So maybe, more focus would be needed in the emotional connects, understanding the user needs, while AI is doing all the, the repetitive tasks for us, and maybe giving designers more time to spend with users and to kind of empathize with not just users, it could be stakeholders as well,
Right.
with the business stakeholders, the product owners. I think that is what the role redefinition will happen, where the designers will now need to pivot, around connecting with their end users, connecting with their stakeholders better, think of innovation in a new way. Maybe how can they bring innovation in the design? How can they bring newness in the design? How can they bring delight in the design? By connecting with people, right? Because finally, people are going to use the application and they are going to experience it, not the AI. Correct. Mm-hmm. Humans are going to use it. So I think that connection is going to be more important for the designers moving forward in the world of AI. Is what I think.
I think I just have two additional
Yeah.
thoughts there. The first one is, I think, you're very right about AI sort of accelerating the processes up. And I think while new roles may not um, come in because of AI, roles may definitely get redefined. Like, I think, as a UX designer designing experiences, you can use AI to accelerate the building of things so that you can spend more time seeing how it performs, seeing how it is used and experienced, so that you feed those,
Mm-hmm.
because that's where the human edge sort of, far surpasses what AI can do.
Yeah.
The other thing to that is also, I feel, as we continue to design for humans, we are also leading to a future where AI is a consumer of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, from that perspective, how are we designing for AI to pick up and experience the systems that we build? Right, we're seeing a lot of it come into content designers already, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe that as we go forward as we advance with AI maturity, we're going to see interfaces being built or interactions being built for AI first or agent first, right? So that it's not just humans interacting with the system, it's about enabling AI agents or AI systems to
Mm-hmm.
also integrate with it seamlessly. So I think that's a redefinition that we're looking at as well.
Absolutely. And this conversation really is the core of why I love talking to you guys and App House, because you're making us IT people get emotional and we're like, "Oh no. No, thank you. No, that's not for us." But I think where that meets this conversation is remembering that AI is a tool. And so we have an emotional, which we did in our readiness assessment. So everyone calm down. Where I'm not asking you to go through like some therapy, right? We know in our readiness assessment that AI is an area at which our people are scared of, right? Because this is the baseline of their value in the organization. They don't know how they're going to continue to add that value. This is people's livelihood. So obviously, they're very nervous about AI, which adds pressure to disarm them in the design. Right. I see a lot of business intelligence tools where it looks so robotic that people will not use it and engage with it because they're nervous about it, right? Is that a right thing to do or a wrong way to feel? It doesn't matter, right? It matters is if the employee is using it or not. So I would argue that, and I'm, curious to hear your response to that, that with the rise of AI and automation as a tool within your technology stack, the design process is even more important for that integration piece for people to feel comfortable using the software because of these constant headlines they're faced with Accenture laid off 10,000, Microsoft laid off 10,000, and all blaming AI for really the exit of an overbloated organization, when we really need to know that AI is a tool, just a technology tool that must be included in the design process. So curious to hear your response to that.
Yeah. So, what I think this is a common echo in
Yeah.
the industry as well, that I don't think AI is going to replace workers. It's the ability to use it well, which replaces the inability to do so, which is where, are you utilizing AI the right way, and using it for your processes and tasks, which can give you that edge, and which may be the most common answer to go to. But I also believe, and I resonate with what you just said, Kyler, is a lot of times these layoffs and scenarios may not be a result of AI. They may have so many other factors that we may
Yeah.
not be aware of, right? So I think what we need to understand and sort of continuously develop on is, how do we actively integrate or understand AI as a tool,
Exactly.
understand AI as a process enabler, and integrate that into the work that we do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
And yeah, and I'm going back to the design world, right? I mean, for
Mhm.
the designers, you can't be just the tools person anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, that I just know that how to use the tool, but you need to be creative, you need to be innovative, you need to continuously think of how am I going to add value, right? And I think not just design, I think it applies to all the roles that you cannot be any more a tools person. You have to continuously learn how I can add value and how I can be more innovative, creative. Even if not a designer, everyone needs to be creative, right? I mean, you need to you need to think of ideas of how are you going to make how are you going to bring the difference, right? I mean, what is the differentiator that you're going to bring for your customers or for your organization? What difference you're going to bring to the table. I think those are the important things for learnings for all of us. I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Really cuts through that hype conversation, right? And what are we using AI for? And oh, by the way, you have an ERP system that uses a lot of AI. So if you want me to put like a sticker on that and say this is AI, right, I will help you feel better about that. But there's a lot that's going on in the organization, and listening to our end users and their experience is still going to be the number one priority, whether that leads to AI or not. And I think what we can relate to what the designers are saying, again, because we have IT and we have designers a lot of times, which is why I love that you guys mix those two, right? Is when we go through things like implementation testing and we deploy AI to go through our test scenarios. Is that a bad thing? Absolutely not. That's a great efficiency tactic, right? But does that mean that we can just print out a paper and be like, check the box on testing? Absolutely not. Right. And that's where we see, especially with our SAP clients, that's where we see a lot of trouble is we have to make sure that there's a collaboration between the machine and the person, because the person is the operator, the machine is the tool, right? And that's the same way in these experiences. It reminds me of something. I always find simplistic examples are really helpful. But if I am building a house, right, I'm just not going to start to draw on a piece of paper and give it to the builder and be like, do all of these things. My husband reminds me of this all the time when I want to knock down a wall. He's like, well, Kyler, that's a weight bearing wall. So if you'd like the roof to cave in, absolutely, we can knock down that wall. But we would never skip that phase in building a house. Also, we would never skip that phase, or we never should skip that phase, right? With our design partners and our colleagues in this conversation. We would have an architect to come in. How do we measure rooms? How do we make sure that you want to walk through the house? Where's your kitchen? All of those different things, when a lot of times that's kind of skipped over. And I think that's a big piece of that. So I know we're having an AI debate in the comments, which I always love. So let's continue that conversation. I think a lot of these have to do with governance. One piece I love this question that kind of switches back to how would you respond to a CFO in the room who sees design as a luxury experience? We see this a lot with other things that tend to be more on the soft skills side, like change management. A lot of times, oh, we'll get to that after. And it's like, okay, well, that's going to up your bill by about $100,000 at least, right? What would you say? I'm curious, as leaders of the organization, to a stakeholder in the room that's like, you know what, we're just going to do off the shelf. We're not going to prioritize. That'll be like a phase 2, phase 3 initiative. What do you say to them?
I would say if the CFO is in a room, I would say if you don't want to invest now, maybe you will have to invest double the number 6 months down the line, or maybe 1 year down the line if you don't get the adoption, right? I mean, if you don't get the adoption, if people are not using it, you are not going to see the transformation that you want to see, and you are not going to see the change in the revenue numbers because people are not going to use it. So better, you save that money which you're going to spend after 1 year, invest it now, and build the right experience so you get the right business value that you're looking for. And maybe to support this, we will have to bring a lot of data. Correct. We will have to bring a lot of data. We'll have to bring a lot of examples to show why we are saying what we are saying, right? So I think that would be the key. It's important to tell them that building experience is not a luxury, because you are not going to get adoption and you're not going to see the efficiency that you want to see to be converted into numbers. maybe 6 months from the transformation. So I think that is what is important for CFOs to kind of know. Nick, if you want to add.
I think I will just add one more layer to that is a large part of these conversations are also perceived as experience design as a separate, isolated activity from your technical planning and building. What we fail to often recognize or acknowledge is every technology interface that we ever build has an experience attached to it. The question really is, are you thinking about it or not? And whether whether you decide to think about it and then don't design it is a separate conversation. But I think essentially the conversation needs to pivot around, hey, we'll still go ahead, build it out of the box and unlock the features you think you need. But can we talk about what is the experience it will enable? And can we tell you about that? So we build in these early stage future journeys. So we bring back user journeys, bring back these visions of the future to essentially communicate that, saying, hey, this is what it would look like. Is this what you want to happen? And that sort of pivots the conversation around to say, okay, this is where I think we can get that value out.
Absolutely. That's really profound. I think that's really important to understand that on many different levels. And that's why we see siloed technology projects, or we've started to see this rise of like business technology projects without telling IT. And we never need to leave that out. That's the backbone of the organization. And I think that's a big piece that we have learned in the last, I would even say 5-10 years, of these cost more money when we leave people out of the conversation, or we leave certain experiences out of the conversation, because technology, unlike 20 years ago, is not siloed to a department, right? It's now the backbone of the organization. We could go back and forth of who should own that decision making all day long, but the modern CTO CIO needs to be able to understand that their people experience with the technology is a dollar sign, right? So if that's what shareholders are pushing them, it needs to be a pillar. And let's do this one. I always love when our users ask our guests specific questions. So Pradnya, this is for you. So AI design tools promise to accelerate everything from wireframes to user research synthesis. But Pradnya, you've built your career on craft and intuition. What part of experience design work should absolutely not be handled by AI, even if it could? What a great question.
Yeah, so basically, when the experience is for humans, as I said, right? And connecting with humans to understand what they are looking for, doing those user interviews, interactions, even validation of experience design that we have done for the end users, we should definitely not leave to AI, because it's like connecting with them, understanding their reactions, understanding their feedback by connecting with them. As I said, we have to see how they react, we have to see their body language, we have to see how they use the application, and the connect that we have with the users to do that. I don't think AI can replace it. I remember we had done application for farmers. We have done applications for painters. So these kind of users. When you build applications for, and when you go back to them to validate the experience that you're building, you have to connect with them in person, right? I mean, you can't trust AI to connect and collect the feedback from them. What are their reactions? We need to really understand their emotions, how they use the application, how they perform that particular business process, when they are using the application. So I think that connect with users and stakeholders in the design thinking process, while we are using design thinking, cannot be replaced by cannot be replaced by AI, is what I think. I mean, after collecting the feedback, probably we can synthesize that information using AI. But how you collect that information by interacting with them is the key in the design.
Yeah, such a good answer. But Nick, I'm curious, in an organization that's running SAP, or let's say a very large global complex organization, how do you collect that type of feedback when you have that amount of end users or that amount of, culture? Do you train your middle management tier to be able to see those things? Like, what do you do?
I'll come to that question, but I have a really cheeky answer to the question on the screen first.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's just humor at this point. But the question says, build your career on craft and intuition, and AI is a tool. So by principle, craft and intuition are things that we cannot hand over to AI. I think that's
Yes.
the beauty of the of that sort of exchange. Coming back to your question, Kylo, as to how we sort of collect feedback across at scale, I think we have to build, it has to be two ways, right?
Mhm.
One is build mechanisms into the system
Mhm.
without disrupting work. Because I think you get the most unreliable feedback when you ask for feedback by disrupting a process,
Yeah.
right? Because that's when people are sort of in a flow, and then you've said, hey, what do you think? Rate us out of 5, right? We have to find these intelligent points of conversation within the system to design to collect feedback. Because essentially what we are trying to build are systems that can sort of evaluate and collect this feedback iteratively in a cyclic manner to continuously progress in
Mhm.
that enhancement, right? The other is to bring this both top down, so enable your leadership, enable your middle management to drive that feedback to your grassroots, and to also enable your workforce bottom up to share that feature, to feel confident that their feedback matters, to share the idea that their feedback on these systems will actually impact how the system behaves.
Mhm.
And this ties back to how, when at the very beginning of the design thinking stage, we get them involved in the process. So they feel like it's them co-creating this system, so
Mhm.
they have this shared sense of ownership around.
Mhm. Absolutely. I think that that's so critical in that loop, right? Feedback is not a destination, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And most importantly, when we get feedback, we need to be able to show the user to build that trust that we listened. Does that mean
Yeah.
we change everything that the user said? Absolutely not. But it acknowledges, hey, we've received this feedback. We have a few more questions. We'd love to jump on a call and experience what you're experiencing, all of those different things. I think there's also a part in AI, just like we see in IT help desks, right, of collecting that feedback. Does that mean that the help desk isn't important in troubleshooting technical issues? Absolutely not. But it helps us organize, collect, and find trends, right, which is so critical. So I know we have 5 minutes left in our conversation. This has been such an amazing conversation. We really appreciate all of the insight that you share. I want to give you two an opportunity to just let people know how they can get in touch with you or follow you. And then also just a reminder to the audience, especially if you're watching this in the replay, I always go back in, tag our guests so they can continue to answer these questions in real time. So Nick, let's start with you.
Yeah. So I think, as Kyla, you mentioned, I think the LinkedIn tags will always be up, so you can reach out on LinkedIn. The other way to get to us is just write to us at the name, so saranic.banerjee@merkle.com, and I'll be happy to respond to your questions or any thoughts that we have. I'm happy to discuss further on that.
Absolutely. I mean, would love to connect with all of you, any of you, if you have any additional questions or if you want to deep dive in any of the topics that we discussed today. Happy to do that. We have a lot to talk about when it comes to app house approach and design thinking, what we give to customers, what we deliver to customers at the end of the process. So we have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn. Email ID is just, my name is already there. Just add @merkle.com. And then you can reach out to me. I think it will be great to talk to
Yeah.
you further.
Yeah, and additionally, I think follow our socials. So
Yeah.
go follow Extentia on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and we'd be happy to connect.
Yeah, as I say, this pocket of the industry, I feel like has so much potential. A lot of times, as technology grows, so does our service to our end users, and you guys are such a huge part of that. So again, thank you for being here and sharing in this. All of those links, my team will drop in the comments to their email. All of the socials will tag as well here. But it's a great company. Definitely recommend following along with their journey and insight because it's so critical. So thank you again for your time. And we'll end the live and we'll see all of you in the comments. So thank you so much. We'll see you next week and have a great day.